Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the FSU Semi-cast. Today we're going to talk about recruiting. It's that time of year. There's nothing going on. You're kind of just waiting for the bowl game. And this is the time I like to really focus on recruiting. I always kind of have a distant eye on it, so to speak. I kind of know what's going on. But this is the time of year where I really start to look at the targets, what the class has now, what it could have, where it stands in the team rankings, so on and so forth. Pretty much now till signing day, which is, I believe, I think it's the first week of February. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the first week of February. So, really, this is when recruiting really amps up for all the teams across the country. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at where FSU stands in the team rankings and what their class looks like, some of their targets, and we'll even take a peek at what our rivals are doing, Florida and Miami. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, here we have the 24/7 Sports recruiting team rankings here. I like 24/7 because it's composite. As the name suggests, it combines all the major recruiting sites and their rankings and puts them together, and that's how they rank players and teams. And I like it because if you go to one site, you go to another, they could be very different. So I like a site that kind of just combines them all, and here you go. Before I get to FSU, this is just the top 10, and yeah, FSU's not in it currently. But don't worry, folks, don't worry. They'll take care of that, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Bama, surprise, number 1. And look closely here. 14 4-stars, 4 5-stars, so 18 blue chippers. So 18 out of their 24 commits are blue chippers. Same old, same old. Ohio State, 6 5-star players already. Just ridiculous. I mean, it's every year with these two, pretty much. I think FSU last year, what they finished, number 1 or 2 on this website. I think they were on the same boat. Like 18 of their 24, 25 commits were blue chip players. And that's, if you want to have a shot at a title, that's typically what you're going to have to do. All right, there are exceptions. You know, a team might have a lot of experience and come together, like, for instance, Washington. They don't recruit on the level Bama, Ohio State does, but they find themselves in the college football playoff. Sometimes you can be not as high in recruiting rankings and have that team that just has the right players in place, has the experience to do some good things, and has great coaching as far as like X's and O's and what have you. That team can pop up once in a while. But in general, and more often than not, the teams that recruit the best also have the best teams. This isn't anything new, I'm saying here. And if for those of you that still don't believe in recruiting rankings and you don't think they matter, well, either A, you're an idiot, or B, your team's not doing that great in recruiting and you're just trying to make yourself feel better. Because although some 5-stars don't make it, some 2-stars go to the NFL, those are the exceptions, okay? Your team is better off if it accumulates as many 4- and 5-star players than non-blue chip players. I assure you, okay? If you want a 3-star army, good luck to you. Anyway, just looking in the top 10 before we get to FSU one more time, Clemson's the lone ACC team. And speaking of what I was just talking about, recruiting in the top 10, having a good team, I don't have the CFP poll in front of me right now, so I might be wrong on one of these teams. I feel like I am, but Bama, top 10. Ohio State, top 10. I think Oklahoma's still in the top 10 in the CFP ranking. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong. That's 3. Michigan 4. Clemson 5. Okay, so half of the top 10 in this current recruiting class is currently top 10 in reality on the field. Shocker? No, it's not at all. Now, granted, this is just looking at a class that hasn't even signed yet. If I were to go back, let's say the last, 3 or 4 classes and kind of give an average class rank, I'm sure that average class rank in the last few years would probably, more often than not, closely mirror the actual rank when it comes to like the top teams. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. But enough about everybody else. Let's get to FSU, who sits at 13. Which is like, oh no, we're outside the top 10. Don't worry, folks. Don't worry. Look at the class size. Let me scroll up a little bit. Let's put us right in the center there. Look at the class size. A 13, very small. They'll probably take another 5 to 7 players. I think their class should finish somewhere around 20 players. Last year it was a little higher, so I think this year is supposed to be a little smaller, so they have to be a little more nitpicky, so to speak. Oh, someone's calling me. Anyways, 6 4-stars, 6 3-stars, and the 1 5-star. Before I click on their actual page, before I do that, just lost a 4-star to Bama. Dude flipped to Bama yesterday, so that sucks. It was 4-star defensive back. His last name was Wright, I think. So that kind of sucks, but it's Bama. What can you do? So probably fell a couple spots due to that. Probably fell at least one spot. Let's see what the in-state rivals are doing. Our neighbors, number 12. They're technically better, but I still think we could pass them because, well, look, they have quantity, not quality. I can't see their class getting much larger than 21. Maybe a few more players. Maybe they take 25. But, yeah, that's a 3-star Army right there. I could easily see Florida State passing them. And let's scroll down a little bit more. Yeah, scroll down a little bit more. Florida. There's Florida. Now, they're actually not too different than FSU. They have one more 3-star and one less 5-star, which would be 0. I'm curious to see where they finish because obviously they have room to grow too. If they finish outside the top 10 again, which is I think they did last year, there's probably a legit cause for concern. Last year, even, I was telling a friend of mine who's a Gator about how McElwain's not really tearing up the recruiting trail. And I was talking about one of my best friends the other night. We were talking about McElwain and recruiting, and he was a Gator, and he was like, as much as I like coaching up players, it'd be nice if McElwain could coach up 4 and 5 stars instead of a ton of 3 stars. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the deal right now. McElwain needs to pick up the pace. Florida recruits itself. I mean, I think just this past year, it got an indoor practice facility, so it's not lagging behind in that anymore because some of the other schools that they compete with obviously had one of those. But they've had everything else for a while. They have the tradition, the fan base, the on-campus stadium, the money to get recruits. And I don't mean literally paying the recruits. I mean to jet set around the country and paying for meals and recruiting, the money it costs to do it. They have everything in place to be at minimum a top 10 recruiting class every year, but with a good shot to be top 5. I mean, Zook was able to do it. Obviously, Urban did it. And even fucking Muschamp. I believe the 2013 class, which signed just after the 4-8 season concluded, was right at like 10. So if you can go 4-8 and still get a top 10 class, then McElwain should be able to do better than he's doing now. So I'm really curious to see where they finish. Who knows? They could catapult up closer because they got room, but I'm not hearing great things. And I'm not just saying that because I'm some FSU fan that's hoping they suck at recruiting. I would laugh because I think that's funny because the talent gap just continues to go up between Florida and Florida State. But that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm reading on all these sites is that McElwain's not an elite recruiter. And if I was an AD, if I'm going to hire a head coach, the number one prereq to be my head coach, you have to be an elite recruiter. Number 2 can be X's and O's. Okay? Because in college football, players are ridiculously important to your success, more than the NFL. Because in the NFL, for the most part, a lot of the players are on the same level. At least theoretically. That's not always true. But coaching plays a bigger role. When talent is that close in the NFL, coaching plays a big part. But in college, there's a huge gap due to players. And yeah, I'm going to take the coach that can recruit his ass off almost every time. Because if you're telling me, hey, I got Team A that has 60% of its roster is blue chip players, but their coach isn't the greatest at play calling or X's and O's in general, and that team's playing Team B, which is a bunch of 2 and 3 star guys, but their coach is really good at calling plays. Well, I'm obviously picking Team A almost every fucking time. Anyways, let's take a look at Florida State's class a little bit more closely. Boom. All right, here we have the 13 commitments currently verbally committed to Florida State University. Top player is 5-star cornerback Stanford Samuels. If you're old enough, you probably recognize the name. His dad played defensive back for Florida State. I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was early 2000s, or right around there. And that seems to be Jimbo's MO. It seems like just about every class he has a 5-star defensive back. His first class was Joyner. I think in 2012 he got Darby. 2013 he got Ramsey. 2015 he got Derwin and McFadden. Derwin was one of the best freshmen last year. This year McFadden almost led the nation in interceptions. And yes, although he was inconsistent in coverage, the second half of the year he was much more consistent, and his 5-star pedigree started to show through. And if you get 8 picks during an up and down first year starting cornerback, if that's what you do during your first year, then yeah, I'll take that. McFadden's going to be a really good one. Anyway, I'll highlight some other players. Kalen or Kalan Laybourne. It's probably Kalen. He's an all-purpose running back. And White, YouTube White. His highlight reels on YouTube are ridiculous. But the reason I'm highlighting these two is Bud Elliott from Tomahawk Nation. He's gone as far as to say this might be the best running back duo in the country. Not the best running backs, not the top 2, but the top 2 committed to a school currently. So that's always good when you have Dalvin Cook leaving. Next, I'll focus on the quarterbacks. You got Hockman, who I believe is a lefty. I could be wrong. 4-star recruit. And then Blackman, who I hear is more of a project recruit, but has a high ceiling. It might be important, again, Bud Elliott suggested this from Tomahawk Nation, to at least have 2 quarterback commitments. And now they do, but there's word that Blackman could leave, and they're looking at Miles Brennan. Maybe they could bring him in. But obviously, McGuire graduates. Costantino is garbage. Malik Henry, don't even know if he's going to be on the team. Might get kicked off. Don't know. So if you're going into next year with Costantino as the backup to Francois, might be a little trouble there. You probably want to get 2 QBs. Other than that, I like to focus, and I'm not talking about these players specifically, and this rounds out the class. Oh, this is Derek Brooks' son. He's really undersized. I'm sure he was just a legacy that was taken. Anyway, you can see some of the other players here. DJ Matthews, I guess I should focus on him. If he were 6'3", he would be a 5-star, and he might be the number 1 wide receiver in the country, from what I gather. Watch his highlight reel. It's ridiculous. As of this moment, considering he is 5'11", he's rated as probably the top slot receiver in the country, which isn't a bad thing. But anyways, back to what I was saying about what I look for. These receivers or running backs that I just talked about, or the quarterbacks, those are all fine and dandy, but what really fucking piques my interest, fucking makes me get excited, is the offensive and defensive linemen. And simple as that. I'm not reinventing the wheel by saying that. The line of scrimmage, that's where the game is won without fail. So as much as these 5-star and 4-star skill position players, are fun to watch on their highlight reels. Yeah, give me that behemoth at defensive tackle or offensive tackle that's a 4 or 5 star. I'll take that all day. Before we conclude, let's take a look at a couple of the targets FSU could land and possibly vault this class well into the top 10, maybe push for top 5. So let's take a look at some of these targets. All right. Again, so we're still sticking with Noles 24/7 here. Here are some of the top targets FSU is chasing right now. Now, obviously, just because they're a target doesn't mean they're going to commit to FSU. But I will talk about a couple that I've heard could commit, and I also talk about ones that I would like to commit. Number one would be Marvin Wilson. He's actually both of those things. I want him to commit, and there's a chance. Maybe not a great chance, but there's a chance from what I gather. And again, what I was mentioning earlier, this is what really turns me on. And I know that sounded weird. 5-star defensive tackle, 6'4", 329. Number one defensive tackle in the country. These are the type of players that can change your team. And I just snap my fingers like that. If they can get Marvin Wilson, holy shit. That would be very impressive. And I'm hoping he can. I mean, FSU, as much as the defense struggled the first half of the year, and although it did improve the second half of the year, what it did do, regardless of first, second half, it led the country in sacks. Surprise, surprise. You may not know that. You probably do if you're watching this. But Wilson would only help continue that. So I would love for Marvin Wilson to commit. And his announcement date, I think he's doing it at one of those high school all-star games, which is the beginning of January. So won't be too much longer. The next one is the next guy on the list, Cam Akers. Now, when I say YouTube this guy, I really, if any player, YouTube this guy. He may not be the defensive lineman or offensive lineman that I love, but this 5-star running back, obviously, would love if FSU got him. This guy has been, God, how can I put this? He'd be the best back Jimbo will have signed, not named Dalvin Cook. And that's saying something. Jimbo's signed some pretty good running backs other than Cook. Freeman, obviously, tearing it up in the NFL. Pender, if he could ever stay on the field, was very talented. Patrick was a 5-star, but Cam Akers would probably, and Bud Elliott from Tomahawk Nation, you're going to hear me mention his name a lot, but I want to give credit where credit is due, thinks he could have a chance to start day one. As much as some people like Patrick, and I'm one of them, Akers might be able to step on the field day one. And at worst, if he wasn't the starter to begin the year, at worst, he'd probably get, I don't know, a dozen touches a game. That's how talented this guy is. As a true freshman, he could do that. Going down the list, probably don't have a shot at either of these guys or even this guy, as much as I love a 5-star offensive tackle. But this guy, Joshua Kando, he recently decommitted from, I want to say, Maryland, which is actually where he's from, but he plays at IMG down in Bradenton. Apparently, the Noles have been trending upwards, and a lot of the 24/7 staff writers have started to crystal ball him to Florida State. If you don't know, that's basically just their prediction. That's what they call it, the crystal ball. But yeah, 6'6", 235. Obviously, he'd have to put on a little bit of weight when he got here. But Brian Burns was about the same height and 10, 15 pounds less. And he's going to probably, seeing what he does in the bowl game, he's got a shot to finish with 10 sacks as a true freshman. So this is one of those D linemen, 5-star defensive linemen. Yes, please. 5-star defensive ends can affect a game big time. So I would gladly take him. And I think he's supposed to commit relatively soon as well. So that would be a huge coup. Isaiah Wilson, I would love a 5-star offensive tackle. Probably not. Noles are probably not going to get him. And let's see, who else? This guy, actually. He's at Miami right now, but I've actually keep reading that he might flip. And why wouldn't he? FSU's won 7 in a row. Like, sorry, Miami, you're trash. He could be a guy that flips. Let's see. Any other big ones? They're chasing this guy, this 4-star receiver, Ruggs. Probably not going to get him, but that's what I'm hearing. This Oregon guy right here, I keep reading that he could flip. He plays at IMG as well. He could flip to FSU. Now, 3-star, you're like, oh, that's not that great. A lot of people think he'll pick up a 4-star, a 4th star before this is all said and done. He has nice size, 6'4", 235. Probably get him up to 250 when he gets on campus at some point. He could flip, wouldn't mind that. And that's about all I'll look at. Those are just some targets. I don't want to drag this out too long. But if anything, if Florida State, I'm sure they'll get more than 3 players. But if, let's say, they finish with 5-star defensive end Kando, 5-star running back Akers, and 5-star defensive tackle Wilson, if they finish with those 3, yeah, that'll be sick. That'll be fucking sick. And that'll all but assure them a top 10 class. That'll probably put them close to 5, because that would give them 4 total 5 stars. So that would, God, that would just be a fantastic finish. If anything else, they finish with those 3. We'll see. People will start committing soon, closer to the Under Armour and the Army All-American bullshit. So just start paying attention if you're interested to see where this class is headed. Again, I would really be surprised if it didn't finish in the top 10. Also, if you want to keep an eye on Miami and Florida, because that's always good to know. God, that reminds me, what a stat did I read about Florida? I think it was in the past 3 recruiting cycles, Florida State has brought in 3 times as many blue chippers as Florida. Is it any wonder this series has shifted in Florida State's favor under Jimbo Fisher? 6-1 under his tenure. It's no surprise when you're just absolutely curb stomping your biggest rival in recruiting. So good luck if Florida wants to turn this thing around, because if you keep recruiting classes like they're doing now, which are solid to good, but not great, it's not going to be easy for them. Anyway, hopefully Florida State finishes strong. Still got about 2 months to go before this whole recruiting crap wraps up. And if you start looking at recruiting, take everything you read with a grain of salt as far as who is leaning which way. You can kind of get an idea based on what people are saying, but these kids change their minds all the time. So I'll check now and again because it's just fun to see maybe where these kids will go. But I'm really just waiting for signing day to see where they'll actually go. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Thanks for watching. First time visitor, please feel free to subscribe. And this has been another FSU Semi-cast. I'm out.